This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
(6:45). This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Lal Malavarachi and read by Lavani Vijayatunga. First, we take a look at the headlines. Intellectuals point out the need to implement long-term policies for sustainable development in a country. Travel restrictions will be relaxed at 4 a.m. tomorrow and will be reimposed from 10 p.m. on Wednesday. The total number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in the country exceeds 237,500 and the death toll rises to 2,534. Limited bus services on provincial level will be operated after lifting the travel restrictions. The government says 5.2 million COVID vaccines will be imported by next month. The GMO stresses the need to popularize organic fertilizer without delay. And in news overseas, hardliner Raisi will become Iran's president. Those are the headlines, and now more to the details of the local news. Intellectuals point out the need to implement long-term policies for sustainable development in a country. They say that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is taking measures to lead the country to a new path of development. Historian Senaratna De Silva says that a country cannot be taken forward only by taking popular decisions. He points out that all people must support the president to implement his policies successfully. Chairman of the Institute of Fundamental Studies, Professor Atula Sumatipala, said that the country needs long-term policies and a proper vision to steer it towards prosperity, and the president has the ability to do that. The President's office has announced that the travel restrictions will be relaxed at 4 a.m. tomorrow and will be reimposed from 10 p.m. on 23rd June to 4 a.m. on 25th June. However, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed officials not to relax the inter-provincial travel restrictions. The restrictions imposed on public gatherings will continue as before. In addition, the heads of institutions in both public and private sectors should ensure that the respective entities are maintained under a minimum number of employees. The President also emphasized the need for all trade and economic operations to be carried out with the participation of minimum number of people. The President also instructed to give approval to conduct the last rites of those who pass away from non-COVID related causes within 24 hours, taking into account the economic and severe hardships faced by the families of the deceased. The Epidemiology Unit of the Health Ministry reports that 2,169 persons have tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday, moving the total number of confirmed cases of coronavirus reported in the country to 237,588. The Epidemiology Unit's data showed that 35,709 active cases are currently under medical care. Meanwhile, the recoveries count moved up to 199,393 yesterday, as 2,134 patients who were under medical care returned to health. According to the official data, the COVID-19 death toll now stands at 2,534, with 54 more deaths being reported yesterday. This is the news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
Get your EPF loan information and service details via SMS from HDFC Bank.
And we continue with more local news. Minister Dilum Amadugama says that plans have been made to operate limited number of bus services on provincial level after lifting the travel restrictions. Limited rail and bus services will be operated according to health guidelines. He also stated that the buses operated for essential duties will be operated during the next few days. The government says 5.2 million COVID vaccines will be imported by next month. Out of these, 2.2 million doses of vaccine are to be imported this month. Chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation Specialist Dr. Prasanna Gunasena said that it is expected to provide Pfizer vaccines as a substitute for the second dose of AstraZeneca. The government further says that COVID vaccination program is being carried out successfully in the country. At present, more than 2.4 million people have been vaccinated with the first dose of the vaccine. More than 787,000 people have obtained 2 doses of the vaccine. The government aims to provide the vaccines to nearly 6.5 million people at the end of this year. The government has allocated 98 billion rupees to import the vaccines and has spent more than 300 billion rupees for the eradication of COVID-19 pandemic. Police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said a total of 17,026 individuals have been arrested over drug trafficking charges during the first 6 months of the year 2021. Reportedly, nearly 408 kilograms of heroin were seized during the raids since January 1st this year. In addition, 298 kilograms of ice and 2,166 kilograms of cannabis have been seized during that period. The police spokesman further said that 13 persons charged with drug-related offences are currently abroad. And to conclude the local news, the headlines once again. Intellectuals point out the need to implement long-term policies for a sustainable development in a country. The travel restrictions will be relaxed at 4 a.m. tomorrow and will be reimposed from 10 p.m. on Wednesday. The total number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in the country exceeds 237,500 and the death toll rises to 2,534. Limited bus services on provincial level will be operated after lifting the travel restrictions. The government says 5.2 million COVID vaccines will be imported by next month. The GMOA stresses the need to popularize organic fertilizer without delay. And that was the local news.
Now, get your EPF loan information and service details via SMS from HDFC Bank. Wherever you are, being a state and private sector employee, to obtain EPF loan information and service details, just send a SMS mentioning EPF space, name and region to 0718 800 999. HDFC Bank, the bank for your home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The main news story for this morning, Chairman of the Government Medical Officers Association, Specialist Dr. Anuruddha Padani says that the health of the public has declined due to the use of agrochemicals for the over past 6 decades. It has also caused more environmental pollution as well. Therefore, he stresses the need to popularize organic fertilizer and reduce the use of chemical fertilizer without delay. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And on to Watchlight, the government has advised Hajj travel operators in the country to avoid taking advance payments for Hajj 2021 since the pilgrimage from Sri Lanka is cancelled this year. Sri Lanka's Hajj Committee Chairman Akam Uwais says that the decision has been taken in line with the announcement made by Saudi Arabia that it will not entertain foreign pilgrims this year as a preventive measure against the COVID-19 pandemic. Saudi Arabia yesterday announced that it will limit the registrations for this year's Hajj pilgrimage to 60,000 pilgrims, which would only include citizens and residents of the kingdom. That came to you in Watchlight, and now we move on to the headlines of the world news. Hardliner Raisi will become Iran's president. UN calls for arms embargo against military rule in Myanmar. India's flying Sikh, Milkha Singh, aged 91, dies from COVID. Those are the headlines, and now we move on to the details of the world news. Hardliner Ebrahim Raisi has won Iran's presidential election in a race that was widely seen as being designed to favor him. He thanked Iranians for their support after securing 62% of the votes. Mr. Raisi is Iran's top judge and holds ultra-conservative views. He is under U.S. sanctions and has been linked to past executions of political prisoners. Iran's president is the second highest-ranking official in the country after the supreme leader. The UN has issued a rare call to halt arms sales to Myanmar in response to this year's violent military coup. The General Assembly adopted a resolution condemning the military junta, which overthrew the country's elected government in February. The UN also called for the release of political detainees, such as the elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi, and an end to violence against peaceful protesters. While not legally binding, the resolution is politically significant. One of India's greatest athletes, Milkha Singh, has died from COVID-related complications, aged 91. Popularly known as the Flying Sikh, Singh won 4 Asian gold medals and finished 4th in the 400 meters at the 1960 Rome Olympics. In 2013, his story was turned into a Bollywood film, Shag Milkha Bang, Bang Milkha Run. Sikh's wife, Nirma Kaur, a former volleyball captain, also died with COVID earlier this week, aged 85. And to conclude the world news, the headlines once again. Hardliner Raisi will become Iran's president. UN calls for arms embargo against military rule in Myanmar. India's Flying Sikh, Milkha Singh, aged 91, dies from COVID. That was the world news, and now we move on to development news. The Environment Ministry plans to produce a powerful natural herbicide using several invasive species that are to be removed from the environment immediately to support President Organic Farming Program. The Ministry of Environment will spearhead the organic farming program initiated by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The purpose of this is to prevent the use of chemical pesticides and herbicides, along with a ban on the use of chemical fertilizer, and to prevent farmers from getting into trouble due to lack of sustainable herbicide for weed control. That came to you in the development news, and now it's on to sports news. Matilda Carlson, who has qualified for Tokyo Olympics, received a dual citizenship passport at Sri Lankan Embassy in Germany from Sri Lankan Ambassador in Germany, Manori Unabue, last week. The 35-year-old was born in Sri Lanka and was adopted by Swedish parents. She is currently residing in Germany, but the show jumper has decided to compete for her birth country, Sri Lanka. Carlson is the first individual to represent Sri Lanka in the Olympics Games for this sport. There is a sports news and business news coming up.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
In business news, Sampath Bank recently launched its latest Sampath Corporate Visa credit card in partnership with Visa, the leader in digital payments, to facilitate better financial management for corporates. The card, which is accepted worldwide, enables companies to seamlessly track and monitor expenses through the provision of real-time data. That is the business news. Economic news follows.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news. Courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And in economic news, Sri Lanka's forex market remained inactive last Friday as the forward exchange rate plunged into a dollar or swap markets, continuing a trend of little or no outright trades, while the gilt yields eased, market participants said. Sri Lanka forex dealers have been barred from quoting above 200 rupees for a US dollar. Swap rates have been quoted and traded at steep discounts, implying one-year forwards at below 180 rupee, with inflation differential inverted despite having a weak currency and money printing draining forex reserves steadily. That is economic news and the weather report to conclude.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And finally, the weather report. The Met Department says a few showers will occur in the western, central, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces and the Galle and Mathare districts. Fair weather will prevail elsewhere. Wind speed can be up to 40 kilometers per hour in the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. The wind speed can increase up to 50 kilometers per hour at times in these areas. And that was the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And before we conclude this bulletin of news, let's get back to the headlines once again. Intellectuals point out the need to implement long-term policy for sustainable development in a country. The travel restrictions will be relaxed at 4 a.m. tomorrow and will be reimposed from 10 p.m. on Wednesday. The total number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in the country exceeds 237,000. The death toll rises to 2,534. Limited bus service on provincial level will be operated after the lifting of the travel restrictions. The government says 5.2 million COVID vaccines will be imported by next month. The GMOA stresses the need to popularize organic fertilizer without delay. And in news overseas, hardliner Raisi will become Iran's president. And with that, we conclude this bulletin of news.